All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about a secret world, an entire invisible fleet operating just below the surface of the ocean. These aren't military subs. Nope. These are custom-built vessels used by drug cartels to move billions of dollars in product across the planet, almost entirely in secret. Now, since 2006, authorities have actually managed to get their hands on over 200 of these narco subs. And, on the surface, that sounds like a huge win for law enforcement, right? But the thing is, that number, it's just the very, very tip of the iceberg. And that's really the billion-dollar question, isn't it? For every single submarine they catch, how many more just slip by completely unseen? The honest answer is nobody really knows. But what experts will tell you is that the ones we see are just a tiny, tiny fraction of the ones we don't. To give you a real sense of just how high the stakes are here, let's look at an actual interception. Picture this. You're out in the middle of the vast, empty Pacific Ocean. A Marine patrol plane is doing a routine flyover when suddenly they spot something that just shouldn't be there. The call goes out, and boom, 2 U.S. Coast Guard boats and a helicopter are scrambled to the location. They pull up next to this weird-looking vessel, and officers literally have to jump on top of it and pry the hatch open. And what do they find inside? A small crew and a mind-blowing 3,000 kilograms of cocaine, making its way silently toward the U.S. So, how in the world did we get here? I mean, this kind of technology doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's actually the result of this decades-long, high-stakes game of cat and mouse between the cartels and law enforcement. It's a full-blown engineering arms race. Think back to the 60s. It was simple, just hide stuff in luggage. Then the 80s hit, and guys like Pablo Escobar started using small planes and super-fast speedboats to try and outrun the Coast Guard. But then radar got better, patrols got smarter, and by the 90s, those air and sea routes were pretty much locked down. The cartels needed a new plan, something that could move huge amounts of product without ever being seen. They had to go underwater. And this is what's so wild. It shows you just how good their solution was. They started using these things around 1990, but for 16 years, a decade and a half, law enforcement had no clue. They knew the drugs were getting through, they just couldn't figure out how. The very first narco sub was only discovered by pure dumb luck in 2006. So what are we actually looking at here? Well, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. The cartels have built up a whole ghost fleet with different kinds of subs designed for very specific jobs. Okay, let's break this down because the variety is pretty amazing. You've got your basic low-profile vessel, or LPV, which kind of skims just below the surface for shorter trips. Then you've got the big guy, the transatlantic model that can hold 20,000 liters of fuel for those long hauls to Europe. But where it gets really, really sophisticated are these last two. Okay, the snorkel sub. This is a true submarine. It's fully submersible, it's built out of fiberglass so radar can easily spot it, and the only thing sticking out of the water is a tiny little snorkel pipe for the engine's air intake. And here's the kicker. Authorities have never, ever captured one of these at sea. Not one. And that brings us to the king of them all, the electric submarine. This thing is basically a remote-controlled drug torpedo. It's all battery-powered, which means it's completely silent, invisible to sonar. It's usually unmanned and just towed behind a regular fishing boat or something. If the Coast Guard gets close, the crew just cuts the line, and the sub, with all the drugs, just sinks away silently. And again, no one has ever caught one of these in the middle of an operation. So this begs a pretty big question. Where on earth are these multi-million-dollar stealth machines coming from, and what happens to them when they're done? Well, the answers reveal a business model that is as ruthless as it is brilliant. They're built in these secret, makeshift shipyards, hidden away deep in the jungles of South America. We're talking places so remote, so covered by thick jungle canopy, that they are completely invisible to any satellite, any drone, any helicopter. They're true ghost factories. And the cost to build just one of these custom submarines is about $1 million. Now, that is a huge investment for any vehicle, let alone one made in the jungle. But get this, that $1 million submarine can carry a cargo of cocaine with a street value of up to $400 million. When you're talking about that kind of return on investment, the sub itself becomes completely and totally disposable. And that's the whole strategy. These are one-way tickets. After the drugs are safely offloaded, the crew literally just opens a valve and sends the $1 million sub straight to the bottom of the ocean, destroying every bit of evidence. They call it scuttling. And if they think they're about to get caught, they do the exact same thing. Sink the sub, sink the evidence, and hope for a better deal. So if the tech is this good, almost impossible to spot, how do you even begin to fight back? Well, you can't just rely on radar anymore. The whole game has had to shift. It's less about tech now and more about human intelligence, going after not just the smugglers, but the people who actually design and build this ghost fleet. And that leads us to one of the most important guys in this entire underworld, a man named Oscar Moreno Ricardo. He wasn't a cartel boss, he wasn't a smuggler. As this quote puts it, his job was way more important. He was the engineer, he was the master builder. They called him the king of Narco Submarines, and for years he was the brains behind the most advanced subs being used by both Mexican and Colombian cartels. But in January 2022, after a massive joint operation, they finally tracked him down and arrested him in Medellin. And see, taking out an engineer like him is a huge deal, because you're not just stopping one shipment, you're shutting down the entire assembly line. But even with a guy like Ricardo in jail, the evolution doesn't stop. We've already seen those unmanned electric subs, so what's the next logical step? A fully autonomous GPS-guided drone submarine, a completely silent ghost in the water. No crew to capture, no human to make a mistake. So that leaves us with the final, chilling question. In this underwater arms race, how do you stop a ghost?